Well, I'm hopeful that I'm actually going to be able to cheer you up a bit. I'm Kim Sturgess. I've the privilege of living in this beautiful province of Alberta. And what I want to do today is talk to you on a more positive note about what I want you to take away from this is that everything you do upstream impacts those downstream. And by actually getting the downstream guys and the upstream guys talking to each other, you can come up with solutions that work better for everyone. That's what I'm hoping we'll be able to talk about today. To give a bit of perspective, this is Alberta. The blue area is the water towers of the Canadian West, bright blue. The red is where in the mid-1800s John Palliser came marching across the prairies and declared that nobody would ever live in this area because it was just too darn dry. And now, 2/3 of the irrigated land in Canada, where a lot of the food of Canada is produced, is in that bright red area. And what I want to do today is talk a little bit of a story about the picture there on the lower right, which happens to be where I live. That was flood night upstream, and that bright red area where that pivot is on irrigation, which is downstream, and that's what looking at collaborative watershed management across those two. So I've been working in water a while, and a good flood, it's amazing what it does for people's interests in water management. Quite shocking, especially when you take out the Calgary Stampede grounds and head offices, and perhaps more importantly, a rather shockingly large number of very wealthy people live in that lower right-hand area. And all of a sudden, we got everybody's attention. Now, when this water flood hit, it was very interesting because coincidentally, we had the Canadian Water Summit just a couple of days later, and my colleagues here both attended. And we took advantage of that to have some of the finest minds in water management in the world, actually, help us put together what are the key things we really need to do in terms of flood management. And these 6 principles here that are listed actually are the ones that came out of that collaborative work from about 150 participants. And I want to talk about a few of them today, but I think they're pretty straightforward. You know, we've got Mark has already said we've got to anticipate and plan for these extreme events. We've got to make sure our operational capacity is better set up. This is in terms of forecasting. Looking at cost-benefit balances of physical infrastructure and more natural infrastructure. Looking at flood risk and municipal planning. Dumb things like, allowing people to build in floodplains and electrical systems in the basements and things like that. We need to fix that. Insurance. I personally think the insurance way is a big driver in the flood. When I got my insurance renewal $15,000 of coverage in my basement. So guess what? We don't have more than $15,000 worth of stuff in our basement, right? Because there was no insurance coverage for it. Watch that one. And last, and what I want to spend more time on today is managing our water resources collaboratively. Just as a quick, what? There we go. Just to give you a bit of positioning. Where the flooding happened is all upstream, and that's where all the water is. And what I want to do to talk about today is so that you can see where the water came out, the rivers, the Ghost, the Elbow, the Sheep, the Highwood. Calgary, you see there, and High River. That's where the majority, in that kind of an area, was the majority of the damage. But I'm going to talk today about that Bassano Dam down there on the bottom right-hand side. That's the headworks of the Eastern Irrigation District, which is right in the middle of that big orange water-scarce area, just to give you a perspective. Now, this was a project that got started at the end of right when the flood issue was starting. We took an opportunity to take work that we'd been doing for the last 8 years on collaborative water management and take what we'd been doing on drought mitigation and convert it into looking at a flood mitigation. You can see the issues there. We do have a lot of this on our Alberta Water portal, so anything you see here, albertawater.com, and you can go and have a look at it. Now, the interesting thing here, though, that I want to talk about is to make this quite personal. The fellow that runs the Eastern Irrigation District and had his hand literally on the kill switch on the Bassano Dam, which is 100 years old, is Earl Wilson, and he's the manager of the Eastern Irrigation District. And you can see there him saying, the hundreds of millions of dollars were at risk. He sat there with his hand on that switch for an hour trying to decide whether to blow that dam. And if that had blown, we would have had a significant, serious impact on food production, frankly, in Canada for 10 years to come. It makes a few houses, the very serious issues in the city of Calgary look quite small in comparison. Now, what we did was to take some modeling work, and again, not to be creative. The point of this is to show you that managing rivers is complex. So each one of these points is an input to the water system, and what this decision support model allowed us to do was to have everyone have their say about what to go into the model, to be able to make the trade-offs based on data, and then optimize. If we look then, here are all the people that participated in this process. These are basically everyone who has a say or an involvement on the entire system was involved in the process. And it's all collaborative. This is a picture of the kind of work that is done. I've showed my buddy Earl there. You can see him. And this is the water managers all sitting around using this tool to input, to agree, to test, to push. And as far as the flood effort was, we identified what all the possible options were for flood mitigation on the boat, every single one of them. We were able to test that, what it looked like, to model it, develop some performance indicators, what if. We modeled the impacts of alternatives and looked at both the qualitative and quantitative impacts, and then our job was to provide that to the province, which we did on March 31st. So back to the issue about Bassano Dam. One of the things that our colleague Earl said over and over again was, we can't take any more pressure on this dam, which is way downstream. We can't take that. So if you look there on the 2013 peak flow, you can see there that he had about 4,300 cubic meters per second going over that dam, and that was it. Even the work that's been done to date in High River, which is just armoring the river going through and speeding the water up as it's going through, some changes also in Calgary, that dam would be breached. If we had the same storm this year, it would be breached. And this was the science that we were able to put behind that to make that point to the government. That resulted in, actually, in the big bright red one, there's a number of mitigation options there, but the bright red one was, we've really got to reinforce our existing downstream infrastructure as soon as possible, because what you've done already upstream is going to knock us out downstream, and that takes out our irrigation. 2/3 of the irrigated land in Canada. That's a lot of food production, which I think we'd all agree is really important. And this was Earl and his good work in being persistent in that. And the good news is that actually yesterday the formal announcement was made. The province would put $40 million into reinforcing the Bassano infrastructure. They've been trying to get this reinforced for 20 years. One flood in Calgary, all of a sudden there's the political will to do what's right. So what I'd like to kind of wrap up on it is, collaborative water management is very powerful. Everybody can have a voice. This man, Earl Wilson, who personally is a bit of a hero to me now, was able to get this done, and this was the #1 most important recommendation that came out of the flood work. So with that, I'd like to wrap up my story, and thank you very much.